Hey everybody, welcome back to the Calibrate Tools and DIY channel. Once again, guys, we have some good topics to discuss. Glad you're here. Please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, that like button before we jump into it, because we need to support the channel, guys. I want to get this message out. This channel is dedicated to teaching you how to use tools, how to promote, basically do DIY all over the place. Okay, we promote the trade skills. And we're dedicated to educating you on anything having to do with your home improvement needs. I don't know what's going on with me here. I'm kind of stumbling over my words, but that's why I got this water here, guys. Okay, to try to gloss it over. Anyway, guys, glad to have you here. Come on in the chat and say hi. Today we're going to talk about permits. Okay, you need permits, guys. I know in some countries it seems like the wild, wild west, but not here in the United States of America. You need permits. Okay, you need permits before you start any kind of construction project, anytime you erect any kind of structure on your property. And if you violate that and you do what you want to do, guess what? You're going to pay for it in the end. Okay, so don't try to skirt around permits. Okay, don't try to break the rules. Perry Good Life No says Slurpee. Yeah, I'm slurping all over the place this time, guys. But anyway, yeah, guys, let's talk about permits. Okay. Why do we have permits in the first place? Like I said, it's not the wild, wild west anymore. Okay, and I know permits can seem cumbersome. They can seem like overkill, overburdensome. But you got to have them, because if you didn't have them, everybody's going to do what they want. Imagine a world without laws. Okay, imagine a world without laws. As much as we don't like laws because they seem oppressive, guess what? We need laws. We need some kind of structure. We need rules. Okay, we need rules, and that's what permits are for when it comes to building and and erecting structures and construction and all of that. Okay, so every time you erect a structure or you're doing construction on a property, you got to have permits. Why? Because of safety, accessibility. It can't pose a health risk. All those things are very important, right? So you have to have some kind of oversight when it comes to that, because you can just build something and it can be unsafe, right? It can be unsafe, and it can cause death. It can cause injury. It can cause all kinds of things. So you got to have these laws in place, these regulations in place, and that's why permits exist. All right, guys. So anytime if you're a property owner or you're a licensed contractor, you're allowed to pull the permits. Anybody other than those two categories, forget about it. Okay, so either you own the property or you're a licensed contractor. All right, guys, and you always want to check with these departments before you start building anything. Okay, so you won't have to tear it down later, because that does happen. And we're going to talk about some horror stories that have happened, and when people they violated the permit protocol, either knowingly or unknowingly, and guess what? It came back to bite them later. So you may have built something and you didn't get the permit for it, and nothing's happened to you yet, but you're in the lucky category, okay? Because depending on where you live, the municipality you live in, city officials can come by anytime, at any time, and look at your stuff and say, okay, where's the permit for this? And if you don't have the permit, guess what? You're going to end up having to tear it down. Okay, so instead of doing it right the first time and pulling the permit, now you're going to have to pay a fine. You're going to have to go through all these hoops just to stay compliant, right? Now you got to pay the price. You got to pay the penalty, and that's what happens when you don't pull your permits right and all that. And sometimes out of ignorance, you do things and you pay the price. So we're going to get into the permit game a little bit, talk about it for a little bit, and see what it's all about. So, like I said, anytime you erect a structure, okay, on a property that you own, once again, you got to be the owner, to pull the permit, um, or you want to check with certain departments. Okay, you want to check with the building department, the zoning department, the fire department, the environmental health department. Those are the guys that deal with lead paint and asbestos and all that stuff, and the public works department. You want to check with all those departments, and I'll say them again in case you want to write them down: the building department, the zoning department, the fire department, the environmental health department, and the public works department. Okay, so you want to check with those departments first before you start building anything to see if they have any regulations or rules that you got to comply with. Okay, so they won't come back to bite you. So yeah. So guys, there's so many horror stories of people violating permits. Like I said, either they didn't know or they just said, well, I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to talk about some horror stories that friends of mine have relayed to me, and show you what can happen. Okay, when you don't pull your permits correctly. For instance, let's see here. I got a story about a guy. Okay, let's call him David. That's not his real name. Okay, but I'm okay. He hired an electrician to do some work for him. And it could have been a friend of his or whatever. The electrician was not licensed. Okay, and he did all this work for him. He did a lot of wiring for him and everything. And the city came by. Okay, the city came by, and they looked at the wiring and asked David, okay, where's your permits? David did not have the permit. And luckily for him, in this case, the city did not make him pull all the work out, because they'll do that. In some cases, they'll make you tear it down, pull the work out and all that stuff and have to redo it. But they did make him pay a fine. Okay. I forget what the fine was, but they did make him pay a fine. They made him hire a licensed electrician, okay, to come in and inspect the work and all of that. And that licensed electrician had to pull the permits. Okay, so look, he paid the price, right? He said, "I'm going to hire, Joe Schmo to go do my electrical work," not knowing Joe Schmo was licensed, if Joe Schmo was licensed or not, and he ended up paying a big price for that. Okay, now in another case, we have a commercial. This is a commercial owner. Okay, they decided to build a high rise. They were foreigners, I think, and they decided to build a high rise. And I guess because they had so much money, they didn't have to use a bank to finance it. They had so much cash, and they said, "Well, we're just going to finance it ourselves with our own cash." And they did that. And guess what? The city came by and looked at the site, and because they were ignorant of, I don't know, because if they were foreigners or not, they didn't have permits. Okay, and the city made them tear everything down, tear the foundation down, the rebar, the steel, all that stuff, and they had to rebuild from that. Okay, guys, so you get my point. You get where I'm going with this. Okay, it's just not worth it to skirt or skip the permitting process because you feel you can get away with it. Okay, just look at it as, hey, these are things that I have to comply with, and it's not just about me. It's about safety. It's about health risks and all that stuff I mentioned earlier. Okay, so guys, this is serious stuff. I mean, I know people want to get out there and get into the real estate market and start building stuff and all that stuff, but they're not taking their time and looking at what needs to be done, what's required, and they end up paying thousands and thousands of dollars because they didn't take that into consideration. Okay, so let's talk about what needs to be permitted. Okay, I'm gonna read a list here of what you need to look at least here in California. Okay, what structures are required to have permits. Okay, so let's go down the list here. Permits and inspections are required for the following, guys. Listen up, take notes here. Number one, new or detached buildings and structures, residential and non-residential. with a floor area greater than 120 square feet. Okay. Number two, you need permits for tenant improvements. So if you're a landlord and you want to improve your properties, you need permits for that. Number three, roof and ground mount solar installation. Yeah, I remember I got into the solar game myself. I was a solar installer. I don't know, some 10 years ago maybe. And yeah, I love the field, but you're drilling into people's roofs, a lot of times, and that can cause structural, could compromise the integrity of the roof, right? So you gotta know what you're doing. So yeah, you need permits for that too. Patio covers, guys, solid and lattice. You need permits for patio covers. You want to cover your patio so you can sit out there and drink your mimosas or whatever with your friends. Well, you need permits for that, guys. If you want to build a patio cover and it says solid or lattice, so even if it's a solid awning stretching out, you got to have a permit for that. If it's a lattice type structure, which you have the beams and the spaces, you need permits for that. If you have an enclosed patio, you need a permit for that as well. Here's another horror story about what happened here. Friend of a friend had an enclosed back porch, right? They had an enclosed back porch, and the city came by and said that the porch was too close to the easement. Okay, and if they had the permits, the city would have grandfathered them in. They would have grandfathered that structure in, and so they wouldn't have to tear it down or nothing like that. But because they did not have the permits, the friend of a friend did not have the permit. Guess what? The city made them tear it down, guys, and they had to rebuild it at their own expense. Okay, guys, this is not like in other countries where this stuff is, the laws are kind of lax and stuff like that. This is United States, and they'll come and take your stuff, make you tear it down, guys. So you got to be careful with that. Okay. All right. So what else is on this list, guys, that you need permits for? You need permits for additions and alterations. You need permits for pools and spas. You need permits for carports, garages, and barns. Okay. Even you're living out there in the country, right? And you think, okay, I'm out there in the country and I got all this land here. I'm going to go ahead and put a barn up. Well, you better check with your city, your city there, and see what the laws are. Okay, see what the permitting protocol is for building a barn. That is a big structure, and you have to have some safety protocols, especially when you're building large structures, guys, overhead structures and stuff like that. It has to be done right. So, yeah, barns. Okay, fences. How high does a fence have to be in order to escape the permitting process? Can somebody tell me that in the chat? How high does a fence have to be? Or how tall does a fence have to be? Or how low does a fence have to be, I should say, in order to escape the permitting process? At least here in California. Come in the chat, and if you have the answer to that, you will, no, I'm not going to, I was going to say you're going to win a prize. I'm not. Maybe later on a game show I may host. But yeah, can anybody come in the chat and tell me the answer to that? I'll give you time to Google it. All right. So if the fence is over 6 feet, then you need a permit for it. Okay. You need a permit for fences over 6 feet. And that's just the way it is. What else? Retaining walls over 4 feet in height and measured from the bottom of the footing, or retaining walls supporting a surcharge. I don't know exactly what a surcharge is, but you need permits for that, guys. Retaining walls and fences over a certain height. Over 4 feet for retaining walls, over 6 feet for fences. You need permits for those, okay? Certain types of electrical, plumbing, mechanical, and structural repairs you need permits for. Okay, guys, I know for water heaters, you need a permit for that. If you're gonna redo your roof, even non-residential or residential, you need permits to do that, to do a roof job. Temporary structures such as modular units I think now they have what's popular now is what they call ADUs. You know, those little units that you can put in your backyard and rent them out. Um, I forget the technical name for that. ADU. Could somebody come in the chat and tell me what ADU stands for? Yeah. Okay. So you need that, guys. Temporary structures like modular units, recreational vehicles, or trailers. Wow, I didn't even know that. Let's see here. On-site grading of 50 cubic yards, cut and fill or more. So that sounds more like a construction site. Okay, like when you got to grade the level out the ground with the grader, you need permits for that. Okay, demolition. If you're going to tear something down, you may need a permit for that. Definitely need a permit for that in the commercial world when you're tearing down like high rises and stuff like that. But if you're a homeowner or you're just, you want to tear down a structure, you might want to check into that as an individual doing some demolition work on certain structures that you have. You may need a permit for that as well. But let's just say you do tear something down. This is kind of funny. Are they gonna, if you violate that permit, are they gonna tell you to build it up again? That's right, Paragirl Life Notes. Accessory dwelling units. That's right. Accessory dwelling units. Those ADUs, very popular today. You can rent those things out. They don't cost that much. Well, I don't know. I wouldn't say they don't cost much, but that's what they have today as far as structures that you can put in your backyard and stuff like that. Okay, you talked about demolition. Erosion control. What does erosion control involve? But you need a permit for it. I have to look into that. Erosion control. I would assume that has to do with certain parts of the landscape being eroded, and you want to control that. So you put certain things in place to control the erosion. Maybe you may build a retaining wall or something like that to keep the erosion at bay. Wall or monument signs. Wall or monument signs. Okay, signs. Certain types of signs. All right, other types of construction activities as well, but obviously they're not listed. They say they're not listed here. So, guys, I gave you a list of certain things that you got to look out for that requires a permit. All right, so you want to keep that in mind. Okay, anytime you get the itch to build something, don't just run out there and do it. I mean, a friend was telling me about a guy she knows that he comes from another country and he did construction in his country, and he lives over here. He's a successful businessman. He has property, but he just doesn't want to comply by the permit game. He just goes ahead and makes additions to his property just because he wants to. There's nothing wrong with that, but he just doesn't want to deal with the permitting process. And his reason for not worrying about permits is because he said he's never going to sell it. Well, what does that have to do with being fined or having to tear something down once the city finds out? Because they have some unscrupulous people out there in the world, guys. I mean, everybody's not your friend. Okay, you can have a neighbor that doesn't like you. You can be in an argument with someone that knows what you have, and they can report you to the to the city or the officials, the permitting officials, the zoning department, the building department, health and safety department. And next thing you know, you got somebody knocking on your door wanting to look around, and they find that they ask you for your permits, and you say, no, I don't have. What permit? Well, there you go. Now you got to shell out however many thousands of dollars and tear down that structure. Okay, so guys, it's just not worth it, guys. It's just not worth it. Okay. Let's see here. What things, guys? Let's look at some structures or some jobs, some projects that you don't need a permit for. Okay. Let me find that list I had. Okay, let me find that list here. All right, so here are some projects that you don't necessarily need a permit for. All right, so if you're going to replace a bathtub, a sink, you can do that without a permit, as long as you're not relocating them to a new area, a new space. So if you're going to relocate the bathtub or sink to a new space, then you need a permit. Okay, but if you're just taking it out and putting a new one back in, you don't need one. Updating light fixtures, you don't need permits to update your light fixtures. If you want to take out your fluorescent lights and put something else in there, you can do that without a permit. Kitchen is kind of exempt. If you want to make cosmetic updates to your kitchen, you don't need permits for that. Okay. What else? Painting a house, painting whatever structure you got. Painting is exempt. All right, thank goodness, because one of my most popular videos on here is about how to use a paint sprayer. You can go check that one out. You don't need permits for painting, guys. Changing out faucets, installing storm windows, changing your siding. I don't know if you guys know what siding is, but if you've ever seen a house that has those layered, it looks like wood, but it's called siding. Okay, it's not a bare straight wall. It's a layered type of structure on your walls. If you want to change that out, you don't need permits for that. Excuse me, guys. If you want to add floors, if you want to add new flooring in there, you don't need permits for to add floors. You want to install cabinets or shelving, you don't need permits for that either. Okay, so those are some of the things that you don't need to go out there and stress about. All right, guys. But once again, if you're going to install a gas stove, if you're going to take out walls, you're going to add a wall, if you're going to add a new HVAC system, if you want to, if you're going to redo your basement or something like that, if you're going to build a shed outside, if you're going to, I said windows, you do need permits for certain windows and doors, but when it comes to storm windows, you don't need a permit for. Once again, I mentioned roofing and I mentioned retaining walls and fences. You need permits for those things. Okay, guys. So keep that in your Rolodex if you're one of those construction addicts, and there's DIY addicts, and you like building stuff and and all that stuff, guys. You want to make sure that's worth it. You don't lose all your money because you violated permit. Okay. Let's talk about the average costs of certain projects on your certain projects, right? When it comes to permits, okay. So it varies on the type of permit you need, but it's usually around $1,300, and like I said, it may vary depending on where you live and the rules there. Okay. So like a garage conversion, that's about $1,200 to $1,500. A window is about $50 to $200 for the permit. Let's say HVAC, $250 to $400 for that permit. Roofing, the high end on that is $500. Low end $255. Fences, high end $60. Low end $20. Okay, and a deck. It says a deck is about $500 on the high end. Low end about $200. Okay, so make sure you budget for that. Okay, and if you're gonna build a structure, you probably have that money anyway, right? You got enough money for the permit, right? So guys, like I said, come on in the chat. We got Perry Girl Life Notes up in the chat here. It's my loyal ride or die right there. And she said, okay. The common name is Granny Flats. Yeah, for those ADUs, okay, they call them Granny Flats. There you go. In-law units. That's where they put the in-laws, huh? Yep. Yeah, guys. Like I said, guys, the permitting process could cost you a little bit of money. Just remember that. But it's better than not. It's going to be cheaper in the long run, right? Because, like I said in some of the stories I just told you about, they not only lost money, they lost time. Okay, so they, you will get fined. Okay, I think for contractors, and these are for you contractors out there that failed to pull your permits correctly, you can get fined about 5,000. At least in California, you can get fined about $5,000, $5,000 per violation. So that's nothing to sneeze at. That could put some people out of business. All right. You want to make sure that you stay on top of that. You could also, like, as a homeowner, right? You don't even have to be a contractor. You could end up getting your homeowner's insurance voided because of that, right? You can get your homeowner's insurance voided if you try to sell your home, and they do, say the buyer wants to do some due diligence and hires an inspector to come look at the property and find out there's no permits, and guess what? You're not selling that home, and you're gonna get fined, and you're gonna have to probably tear stuff down. So is it really worth it? Is it really worth it? But most importantly, it's about safety, man. It's about safety, guys. You don't want something just falling down because it wasn't built correctly, it wasn't supported correctly, and you got to look at it from that perspective, right? You could have a child get hurt, you can get hurt, you can lose your life. Stuff like that can happen. That's just how the world is, right? So safety is number one, I would say. Reason to get stuff checked out, inspected, and all of that. Okay, another story. Friend told me that they tried to refinance their house. And because they didn't have the permits, they pretty much lost the house. They might have to give it back. Okay, and so yeah, man, it's all kinds of traps out there. So you want to stay compliant. Perry Life Notes. Permits are necessary for safety, even if the inspector. Yep. I'm waiting. Perry Life Notes. Even if the inspector. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, it's about safety in the long run, right? It's about safety in the long run, right? You don't want to take shortcuts. You don't want to be selfish, and all of that stuff, and end up paying for it. Okay. She said, Perry Life Notes. Permits are necessary for safety, even if the inspector is crazy. I'm pretty sure they got some crazy inspectors out there, Perry Life Notes. Yeah. Yeah, guys. So that's it on the permit game. I just wanted to come in here and give you guys an update on that. And if you're a true DIYer or a true tradesman, you can't overlook the administrative requirements before you get out there and start building stuff. I mean, I like to build stuff too, right? I like to put stuff together and build stuff and stand back and look at it and say, oh yeah, I did that, or yeah, a lot of people are going to benefit from that. But if you don't do the right thing and go through the right channels, like the building department, the zoning department, health and safety department, environmental and the health department, guys, I mean, these guys can come and snatch the rug right from up under you, and leave you there sitting there twiddling your thumbs and saying, hey, why didn't I do that? Oh, I shouldn't have skipped that. Oh yeah, Very Good Life Note says they got a lot of inspectors out there on the take, and they're just issuing the permits without really checking. But it's sad and horrific if something goes wrong. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, hey, we live in a world where that happens. We live in a world where that happens, guys. People on the take, and they don't care. They just pay them off, and we get what we need, right? So selfishness on both ends. All right, so you got to watch out for those people. How would you know, right? Unless they, I guess you got to do reviews and look up, reputable inspectors. Can you even do that? I'm not sure, but yeah, you got to look out for that. I mean, if a guy doesn't sound like he knows what he's talking, or he just, I don't know, he's just on the take, and then yeah, hopefully you don't encounter those kind of people, because Or what you can do is you can hire more than one, right, to come look at the property, right? It doesn't have to be one, and then compare the two, which one sound more credible, and then make your decision from there. And yeah, but if you're paying the guy, I mean, you're in the wrong too, right? You're trying to get over as well. So, yep, the penalties are steep as hell. Yes, steep as well. Okay, very good life notes. Absolutely. Very steep, very steep. Yeah, I remember that. The Miami condo a year or so ago. I remember all those people died when that thing collapsed. Remember that, guys, in Miami a couple years ago or something like that? Very good life note says about a year ago. Yeah, it could have been that. And that thing fell and all those people inside died because of the inspectors, it was faulty inspections. And that happens. That's happened so many times. A structure collapses and kills people, and you know, even I think Edison, the power company over here on the West Coast, they had faulty equipment that they did not inspect, or they just let it. They didn't do periodic inspections of it, and it caused a big fire because they're always having wildfires out here, and people lost homes, people lost property, people lost lives, and yeah, they blamed it on the power company. So yeah, I mean, you can't catch everything. I get it. It's not a perfect world, but you gotta do thorough inspections. You gotta have inspectors that people, I should say, that are not on the take, and else on the other side, you gotta have property owners that are not trying to get over either, because it's not just about them. So guys, I hope you learned something from this live. When it comes to permits, please think very hard about that, because like I said, it's very it can have some serious effects on your pocketbook, on your finances if you violate the permits. So think about that, and keep that in mind. Tell your friends and all that good stuff. Okay, this is the Calibrate Tools and DIY channel. Hope you learned something. Please hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you guys in the next one, Tuesday at 7. Have a good one, guys.